Hey, South Bay, I'm Jeff Pollard at solarpowertothepeople.org and Jeff Pollard 11 on Instagram. Once again, I'm with Adam and Izzy. I'm going to call you Izzy this time.
Heck yeah.
And this is like a part 5, I believe. And
Is that where we're at?
day
Nice.
43 of a
61-day road trip.
That's like the joke with me is
yes.
I never memorize the end, how long it took. So anyway.
Well, we didn't know how long it would be at this point either. Yeah, so there we go.
Right,
so
let's get into
at this point, we are in St. John's, Newfoundland, the easternmost town in North America. We have driven the equivalent of the entire circumference of Mars at this point, 13,263 miles.
Now, mind you, they started in the South Bay, worked their way up to Northern California, continued up to Alaska, cut through Canada, and now we're on the east side, east coast.
East.
And, yeah.
But if we had started our road trip instead, any place on Mars, and just pick a direction and went there, we would be back in the same place. That's how far we've driven at this point. Obviously it's closer to go there directly, but we went through Alaska, because why not?
That's beautiful, though. I mean,
yeah.
God, what a journey! And to like I said, to say that you've gone the circumference of Mars now, that's intense.
Yeah, and there's a lot more to go. Got to get all the way home first. So yeah, day 43, we wake up after being screeched in. Remember, that's the
yes.
ceremony. You drink some rum, you kiss the fish, and you're an honorary Newfoundlander. So we wake up in St. John's, decide to try another traditional Newfoundlander dish called tautons.
Okay.
I think this will have more crowd appeal than the cotto gratin. It's fry bread, and they serve it with a bunch of molasses and beans and fried egg.
Fried bologna.
Fried bologna. It is just a ridiculous, I'm ready to go conquer the ocean after this kind of breakfast.
By this time, were you guys like missing any part of just you know how like when there's traveling you're like, well, I do miss my own bed. Is there any like feeling at any point where you're just like, oh man, a bee? But is there any any point where you're just like, okay, I'm over? And I'm not trying to say like negatively. I'm just saying like you're just like, oh, I'm getting that kind of road trippy, kind of like sea legs and just kind of like, oh man, the madness.
I miss my cat.
Yeah,
That's
so
pretty much it.
There would be some points where we would have a sweatshirt on the bed, and I would look at it, and first glance I thought it was our cat, Bustifer, and I would immediately realize like that's not our cat, and just feel this like pain like in my heart.
Yeah.
I would ask, we had some people like taking care of him, so I was like, can you please send me a picture of him?
Okay.
We also just missed our community and the people that we'd left at home, but we're excited because at this point we were making our way back to them. The long way, of course, but we were on our way back.
Yeah, basically the trip had 4 segments, all of wildly different lengths. One going north, ending at the Arctic Ocean, and then once we left Anchorage, it was like 3 weeks of just barreling eastwards.
Okay.
And so that pretty much wraps this part up, and then it was a huge trip south, and then the shortest one was just zipping west. But the longest stretch here was barreling 3 weeks worth of driving eastwards.
Okay.
All in one direction. Where'd that bee go? Is he
Right
still
there.
chilling?
Yeah, it's right
Okay,
there.
hey, little guy. All right. So yeah, we wake up in St. John's. At this point, we're overdue for a car servicing, so we bring it into the Subaru dealership in Newfoundland.
Okay.
Which was a fantastic experience.
If you're in Newfoundland and you have a Subaru, go ahead and get
Fairly
get it,
priced, they're on top of it. They'll communicate with you the whole time. They'll squeeze you in if you need a last minute, like anything.
Unlike the one in Fairbanks that didn't even rotate my tires, so by the time we got to Newfoundland and we had all this weight in the car, our tires were screwed. Especially because the weight kind of bowed it out a little bit. So on the outside of the tires, it looked perfectly fine. On the inside, it got down to the wire.
Really?
So we had to have a very expensive and much lengthier than we expected stop at the Subaru dealership. And we had stuff to go to today. It wasn't, it's a short driving day, but we had to get to our boat. The boat to take us off the island.
It won't wait.
Right, the boat will not wait for us. So we're just waiting. We had a couple things to do as well. We wanted to explore more of St. John's. We wanted to go to this one specific lighthouse that is the easternmost point of North America.
Okay.
Not counting Greenland, but it's only a couple thousand miles to like Ireland at that point. You're basically right there.
Okay.
So we were waiting there at the Subaru dealership for them to finish what they were doing. They were on top of it the whole time, but because those tires weren't rotated, they had to switch out the tires. They had to recalibrate things. It was a whole mess.
We had to take one off from when we had, wrestled a wheel onto our car in Alaska. So we
did a good job.
We were in our California Subaru in Newfoundland, moving this tire that was dumping dirt from north of the Arctic Circle in Alaska, and everyone was getting such a kick out of that.
Really?
Yeah, we were getting all sorts of attention.
Now, we want you guys to do this trip. That's why we're kind of talking about this. How long was that? Just to like, every car mechanics thing is different, I get it, but like, how long was that process? Like, just kind of wrap people's minds.
We were there at least 2 hours, I think maybe 3.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just because there's so much that needs to be done.
Especially the
on their car.
wheels, because there's a lot of wear and tear. We
big road
brutalized.
Trips. Know your car.
But we did this without an appointment, so we were actually very lucky to get in at all.
Okay.
Because originally we were wanting to do this since we were in like Ottawa, but everywhere else was busy except for
2 weeks.
the only one in Newfoundland. So usually, especially when I used to have a Prius, like you could just bring it in anywhere, and like an hour, hour and a half later, you'd be fine. But not quite so here.
All right.
But we managed to get out with barely enough time, so I drove like a crazy person to this easternmost point. We ran out, sprinted up some steps, huffing and puffing. Could barely just hurry up.
We're almost there.
Get there, take a bunch of selfies, a bunch of pictures, jump up and down, say, "Oh my God,
Have a
we're
good
here!
time."
This is the easternmost point
Okay.
in the whole continent. Oh my God, we made it! This is crazy." All right, run back to the car.
He was worried I was going to fall down the stairs with how fast I was going, and I'm surprised I didn't.
We run back to the car, drive this 83 miles to the port, I guess, to
Just
meet
in
this
time.
boat.
So
just in time.
Just to see this lighthouse, it was 80 miles from the port. Also, that's crazy. Okay.
Well, it's right near town. It's like 20 minutes outside of St. John's, because St. John's is already right there at the edge of everything.
Yeah.
But this is the easternmost point. Like, this is one of the extreme points of the continent.
Yes. You
I
gotta
had to visit it.
put your flag
I would have
down.
been willing to miss the boat and like totally screw up the itinerary.
Do you know how long that would have been if you missed the boat? How long you would have had to wait?
We didn't want to
Less
think
than
about
a week.
that.
Ah,
Less
okay.
than, that would have been a burn that bridge
but it
when
would
we
have
come
been
to
like
it.
that crazy.
Days. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, it wouldn't have been, oh, just wait an hour till the next one. No. They come every couple
Oh.
days to this side. Might have had to drive 10 hours to the other side of the island to get the boat that comes a little bit more often out of Port aux Basques, but no, this was it. So we managed to make it. We were a little late for initial check-in, but still definitely in the window to make it on board.
Okay.
We
We're
were
not the last
calling
ones.
like crazy,
Oh, yeah.
because just being like, "Oh my God, here's our situation. Are we gonna be okay?" They're
we
like, "Don't. As long as you're not there like 5 minutes before departure, we'll get you on. You'll be all right."
And we had such poor service at that point, too.
We were in
so
the
we
middle
were,
of Newfoundland.
we were like calling and then it would drop, calling and it would drop. So we were like not getting any answers because the person couldn't hear us or we couldn't hear
Sure.
them.
the same person we kept calling too, so they were probably getting annoyed at us.
So good to know that phone reception's terrible also. What were like some other things you needed to like just prepare for or have just in this particular gap of time? Was it just like, okay, I had my road trip, I had my wallet, I'm good enough? Like
Yeah, Newfoundland is
anything?
perfectly good modern roads. I think I said in the last video, when it starts raining though,
Okay.
they do have kind of grooves where your tires are, so when it's clear weather, you're fine. It's just a highway. But when it is raining, you do got to worry about hydroplaning
You
and
actually
stuff like that.
just got an email today.
Oh yeah, from the Subaru being like, "Oh well, it's fall, it's almost winter time. You got to change your tires over." I'm like, "I'm back in California now. I'm good."
So remind people what time of year you went and like what was the weather for?
This is specifically we're talking about July 21st right now, just 1 month after solstice.
Okay.
The weather was perfectly lovely.
We had some rain around Newfoundland, but that is more than normal. If you don't, then something's wrong.
We had ridiculously nice weather the whole trip, like unheard of across the continent, like with how nice it was.
Pretty much. Yeah, we had like 3 major, I think, weather events. And coming into Gander, Newfoundland was one of them we talked about in the last video with the thunder and the lightning and everything.
And you didn't worry too much about cash exchange? You pretty much charged everything? Or
Oh yeah, everyone has credit cards. It's, you know, if you're in any sort of foreign country, it's smart to have, you gotta have the cash, the local cash. There was one...
I was just thinking.
When would
moron
you need it?
in British Columbia who was just like the most like American stereotype you can imagine.
Let me
Went up
just-
to you tell the story. Go
Set
for
the
it.
scene. So we're in this small town called Dease Lake, and in which territory again?
This was northern British
Yeah.
Columbia. Northern British
So-
Columbia.
And we're there. It's a small town, and you know the kind of town where at the dump they have grizzly bears, black bears, and golden eagles just picking at the trash. The people at the cabin we were staying at, lovely cabin by the way, actually saw wolves the day prior. It's just this small middle of nowhere town, and there's this one place to get food, this little shack, that or you can go to the grocery store with good breakfast there. But there's this one little shack where you can just get a burger,
Hot dogs,
hot
just you know,
dogs.
just your basic
yeah,
kind of road fare. So yeah, this
no
very
card.
very American guy comes up and he's like, "Oh, I only have American cash if that's okay." And they're like,
Not really.
We'll take it, but good luck getting away with that in like Central South America.
Yeah.
I think they only took it because at that time, I'm not sure how it's changed, American cash was just worth that much more. So they're like, we're making something of a deal off this guy.
Yeah.
And then he was like, "Oh, do you have any American cheese?" And they're like, "We have
gosh.
Yellow
cheddar."
cheese.
And he's
American.
just like, yeah, he was like trying to explain to them what American cheese was, and they were like,
knew.
"We just don't have it." And he was like, "Oh, okay, no cheese. I'll just have." It was like just bacon on a
Yep.
hot dog or something. It's
Bacon
just
on a burger.
Bacon on a burger, no cheese. It's just one of those experiences.
We were just
People
sitting over there
making
like,
a fool of themselves.
oh,
Yeah.
no. Like,
Asking
oh,
for American cheese, that's like just the cherry on top of
Asking for
like-
American cheese, paying in American cash,
Cash,
over
yeah.
1,000 miles into a foreign country.
That is yeah.
It's not hard to bring cash of the country that you're in.
in fact,
Yeah,
you could
no.
just go to a grocery store, and when you get cash back, you'll get the appropriate currency.
Yeah. You
For
won't
the-
need it most of the time, but you will need it some of the time.
Right. The best experience is pretend like you're gonna become that group of people. Those people, you know, don't bring your culture to them. Adapt to their culture, and you will.
And which is
You'll
not
like
hard
you.
in Canada.
Yeah.
But
right?
this guy
Our
couldn't even
front
manage
yard,
to do
yeah.
that. Anyway, so we get to this boat. We get basically right on. Unfortunately, it's not quite as nice of an arrangement as the boat on the way over. On the boat
Okay.
over, we get a room with a window facing outwards. There's much more food options. Even I told you that kind of bleh.
You talking about the
gratin.
previous one or now?
This one, the previous one was nicer.
Okay, but
This one we had an interior room.
was
The
a
ocean
really
was just
weird
that much
experience.
more choppy too, so there was no view outside,
Aw.
but just our perspective
But you can feel the motion.
shifting. No good food options. We end up with like pizza, which we
Alright.
brought back to the room. We explored the common area for like an hour, and then we're like, what are we doing here?
Okay.
So at this point, I mean, I told you we've driven more than 13,000 miles. I was exhausted. It's
So
a
you're
missing
happy to be
things.
pooped out,
Yeah, I was
right.
missing my cat, but I was exhausted. So
Okay.
I went to bed at like 6 or 7 p.m.
5.
Really?
He slept the night. He slept the night.
With the lights on.
With the lights on. I
That's
kept
tired.
like waking up every like 2 hours being like, hey, do you want to go look outside? You know, to see what the ocean looks like at
No.
night. And you just go, wake me up in a bit and fall back asleep.
And then next thing I knew it was the morning and we were docking back in Nova Scotia.
You needed it though.
Yeah.
Oh, that was great. I
Yeah.
really
Your body's
needed that.
telling you you need it.
Especially because there's no better sleep than when you are on the water.
Just being rocked to
Oh.
bed. It's so nice.
It's so nice.
I'm glad you could handle. I know some people that probably couldn't with their seasickness. But that's cool. So you landed. How long did the boat ride take?
This was a full, I think, 15-hour boat ride because we left at like 3 p.m. and arrived at like 7 or 8 a.m. the next morning.
See, I've never taken a boat ride that long, so it's hard for me to be like, what? Like, all right.
First time for me too. I mean, if you take a look here at this map, you can just see like the distance. Like, where did we go?
It just goes all the way across Newfoundland. Because we're at the far end of Newfoundland, so we had to go all the way across and then across back to the mainland in Nova Scotia.
And once again, they have a 3-ring binder of like their whole journey. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, great.
That's so fun. And it's just like a map, so you're not missing out on too much visual, but it's got the names and all that. It's really cool. Yeah.
So basically, after we left the Subaru, we were in constant motion because we got on the boat, still motion. We get off the boat. We had a full, 9-hour day ahead of us.
To drive and go.
Yeah, so this day we just chose to drive the full length of Nova Scotia. So we started kind of here at the northeast tip.
Okay.
And eventually ended the day at the southwest tip.
Okay.
It's a beautiful place. It's very rural. The drivers are really slow, unfortunately.
Okay.
They're not going too far. They're just kind
yeah.
of going out on a nice little drive.
We got stuck behind a very slow tractor that was
The
going
tractor-
about 7 miles an hour or something.
That was hard to pass up, huh?
Because there's these
It's 2 lanes.
Yeah, these little 2-lane highways winding through the forest.
Okay.
So you don't know who's coming the other direction, what kind of bear or moose is going to be in the road.
You did see a black bear, and it was
Later.
Oh,
Yeah.
Was there-
No spoilers.
No, okay. This is just more of like a cultural thing. So, I mean, at least, when we go through mountain towns, sometimes you get a car, and when they see at least 3 or more cars behind them, they tend to pull over.
Not here.
They are so bad about that.
Okay,
there.
so they don't. Okay.
Like, there's signs for it. And and it says legally you're supposed to do it, and it's just like you're just simply not. Eventually the tractor did, but I think that was like the only one over the whole
It
trip.
took a long time too. There were
Yeah.
so many points where they could have pulled off, and they basically
Really
pulled off when
could've.
there were how many cars behind us.
So,
Gosh.
if you are road tripping through these regions,
June time.
had your itinerary. This is not like interstate travel where it's just like, yeah, I'm a fast driver, I can make up time.
Sure.
It's like you are at the mercy of the slowest drivers on the road.
Okay.
You don't get to decide the speed you're going. That's a huge thing on almost any other road trip. I know I can make up time. I know I can, pad it in that way, but you have to add time in these areas. You just have to, or else,
funny.
you'll be stressed and behind.
God, that real quick, that reminds me when I traveled to India, and it was just like so crazy. One, they had painted signs on their big vehicles that say "Please honk."
Yes.
So the noise pollution is crazy
Crazy in
because
India.
they want you to honk so that they can pull over so you can go around. Other times it was so berserk, I'd look at my driver and I'm like, you could easily just go around them instead of honk, wait for them to do it and blah. And so it's just so maddening how they like kind of justify their Anyway, so that just reminds me of crazy stuff here. But all right, so we're kind of looking at a terrain. This is like a peninsula. You can obviously look at the map yourself when you Google it, but it's just like, yeah, okay.
Past Maine, past everything, just way out at the edge of the Atlantic.
But dense trees here.
Oh yeah,
Okay,
no,
cool.
definitely heavily forested all throughout.
Beautiful.
Here, just like small towns sprinkled. I mean, it's like the Northeast, just that much less populated.
Okay.
So it's also interesting because a lot of the major industries were fishing and forestry, and so you'll have these kind of little fishing towns that are still remaining where they're just really small. Like there used to be this huge boom in fishing, and now there isn't. But you still have these remnants of these towns of people whose heritage is now living here.
And then a lot of vacation homes in more modern day Nova Scotia. That's evidently a big thing, and they're complaining about being taxed and all that. We were
Pretty low
reading up
taxes,
on all the local gossip.
Yeah, just seems to be it. Some out-of-towners come build their mansions. And
Sure.
yeah.
Then they're like, oh, my great-grandfather was from here, so I shouldn't be taxed.
Yeah.
So evidently you hear a lot of stuff like that.
Okay.
Anyway, so we make it about halfway down through Nova Scotia, the city of Halifax.
Working southbound. Okay,
Yeah, it's really cool, big modern city. We get a great doner kebab lunch.
Okay. I always like to compare. So when you say big city, what do you say? It's kind of to the South Bay area.
To the South Bay.
There's not really. It's bigger than anything in the South Bay.
Yeah, it's like it is a proper city. It's not huge and sprawling, but it has like a downtown with large buildings, and it has a whole lovely like oceanfront boardwalk too that we got to explore, and then we went from the boardwalk at sea level all the way up to the famous Halifax Citadel at the highest point.
And it was hot. It was hot. We were hiking uphill. And we tried sneaking
Straight
through
uphill.
it.
Yeah, and then there was a little part of the fence that was open, and we tried sneaking through, but there was some worker who was like, no, you had to go around and pay. And we're like, never mind. We've seen what we have to see, and we just moved on. It's a cool place, though. I would go back in an instant. Halifax was definitely a cool city, and I could tell there was a lot more to explore that we just didn't quite have time for.
Okay.
So if you're going to Halifax, budget in a day or two.
Yeah.
But yeah, we ended up going a couple hours further south, all the way to the edge of the Bay of Fundy. Here, that's the bay that kind of separates Nova Scotia and Maine. It's famous for having the highest tides in the whole world, actually. It's like over like 20 foot. I don't want to be too specific, but it's
ridiculous.
dramatic.
Can you see like the
Shockingly dramatic
markings on the
tides.
cliff sides or anything?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
that's
and then
cool.
it's like
The
there's
water
certain
will-
parts of the day where you can walk on the sea
I
floor,
love that.
and then
Yeah.
you better get out of there because it's gonna when the tide comes in, it comes in fast.
Does it now? Okay.
Yeah.
Like, it's
Scary
very
fast.
dangerous.
Yeah, like don't do that willy nilly. That's for sure.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, we end up in Yarmouth. It's a pretty small town.
Oh, it's lovely.
This one, it's cute though.
There's this
Yeah.
park, then all of a sudden I started seeing headstones, and we were just reading them, and they turned this old cemetery into just a public park, and it was really lovely.
But this is Northeast Old Cemetery. Like Old Cemetery here is like the 1920s.
Yeah.
This is like the 1720s, basically.
you can still read them.
Really cool,
Yeah.
really cool little place. We only a couple hotels there in town. You can walk the main street.
Gorgeous architecture, because you
yeah.
had these like captains and other people who were really big in the fishing industry build these beautiful mansions with the best architecture of that era. Yeah, we did not spend nearly enough time there. I have to go back.
Yeah, it's a cool town.
And
Yeah,
they
it
had this-
always amazes me though. It's like, cause these are real small towns, and so it's just like, I don't know. For me, it's like, you have to remember they took the time to like get all the supplies. They probably had low manpower to build these really nice looking homes. So it's like that you gotta account for all that. It's 'cause
And
it's
these,
like,
these towns especially were these big boom towns when, especially a lot of the trade between North America and Europe was at its height.
yeah.
And so there was like tremendous amounts of money in these areas at a very
culture.
specific time. Like these were the places to be.
Yeah. No. I dig
Yeah.
it. Okay.
No, I loved it there. I thought it was really cool.
Now,
Really beautiful.
just to give a person an idea, are you able to look across and see Maine? Or is
No,
it too
you're plenty far away.
Okay.
You're-
It's a huge
Alright.
bay.
Yeah, you're on like a cup. This Yarmouth connects with Bar Harbor, Maine,
Okay.
and it's a couple-hour ferry at least.
Okay.
So that's what kind of keeps Yarmouth going. Is it's
Yeah.
like a ferry town
Okay.
now. But yeah, the Bay of Fundy is huge.
I want to give you a scale.
Yeah.
All right. Cool.
And you'll just find these little inlets and tiny little coves that are just idyllic, just little slices of paradise where you could just, it's just someone's house is just right there. And you'll go on the cove and you'll just see the water go on as far as you can see, and it's quiet. And each cove is different. Some have different rocks, some have sand. Like,
Especially on our side of the border in the Northeast, it's so heavily developed now through so many of these areas,
Okay.
but it's so much less developed way out in Nova Scotia here. So you just get to see that more nature that you just can't see in areas like Massachusetts, even Maine
what does
anymore.
the earth look like in this area?
Yeah.
I want to paint another picture for the audience. So there's been a few times in my life that I've traveled somewhere where like my ears just actually not used to that much quiet. Where there's just there's nothing.
Yeah.
You will actually hear almost like a humming
Yeah.
because your ear is so used to some kind of noise. Did you get something like that? Maybe not so much here, but somewhere.
Definitely over in like
Yeah?
Alaska and all
Okay.
that area. A little less here. There's still
You hear
stuff
the
going
wind
on.
and birds. Okay.
And the ocean's coming in pretty strong
That was
too,
peaceful,
and you
though.
get like the beautiful
Great nature noises,
salty,
though.
yeah, the
Yeah.
salty breeze
Okay.
and all that. Yeah, it was pretty
Cool,
fantastic.
cool.
Anyway, we're at day 45, waking up in Yarmouth, Nova Scotia, and we're making our way back to the States now. So this day we basically just hug the Bay of Fundy all the way around, and we stop at this. Well, first of all, for lunch, we end up getting the best fish and chips that I think
Ever.
exists.
Yeah.
We've
Ooh.
both been to London. We've been all around the Northeast.
Are you able to restaurant drop?
Oh,
Murphy's Fish and Chips
Ah.
on 88 Esplanade Street in Truro, Nova Scotia. I will be that specific. Thank
Sure,
you.
yeah.
And they
'Cause that was
know
so
they're
good.
They
All right.
know
They're like,
good.
oh, we have people come from Texas, all Western Canada, everywhere. And like, we're coming here from LA, and it's.
We
oh my
asked
God,
for
it was so
two.
good.
They say, do you want a 1-piece or a 2-piece? And we're like, oh, a 2-piece. And they bring out a whole. Each piece is half a whole fish, like this big.
Nice.
And we got 2 of those, and we looked at them immediately. We're like, oh no. Of course, you eat it with the malt vinegar.
Okay.
And we were talking. We're like, oh, this is fantastic. They're like, the owner was there, and he's like, do you want some pie? And we're like, oh, the best.
No,
pie.
it's a better question than that, because we were talking about road tripping, and I talked about my favorite pie place in the world, which is Pine Country Restaurant in Williams, Arizona.
And he just looked like.
And I didn't know that pie was a thing in this restaurant. I was just talking about road tripping.
Uh-huh.
And so I just dropped the phrase, "This is the best pie in the world."
Ooh,
His
okay.
eyebrows go up,
Fine words.
and he's like, "No, you have to try my coconut cream pie."
Wow. Okay,
Yeah,
I would have not
so
expected
good.
coconut cream coming from that.
So
Okay.
The thing is,
so
there's
good.
that connection.
He didn't
with-
even charge us. We just said
Really?
that we have an idea of the best pie in the world. I still think it is the best pie in the world, but this is
I don't know.
damn good.
But it's
that
hard.
coconut cream pie
Yeah.
might have been the best cream pie I have
Sure.
ever had
That
in
was
my entire
so
life.
special.
Yeah.
No joke. I ate myself sick because I had 2 giant pieces of fish. Well, I gave him some. He ate himself sick.
Yeah.
And then we split this giant, thick, luscious piece of pie, and I couldn't help but eat the entire thing. It was amazing.
So good. It's way
Can I have
too
a
good.
bite, honey? No.
Ooh, there's another bee. The bees are dive bombing us.
Yeah,
today.
we're in a bee drop area,
Great.
but so we're gonna get some weird reactions here.
Great.
So yeah, it's kind of hard though. So when you have a pie, you always have to compare it with the same type of pie, and I don't think I've even
right.
gone to get a coconut cream pie anywhere. So, but
if you are in Truro, Nova Scotia, boy,
No
do you
joke.
need to try this.
for me, it's always like the big one's always like a crust too. Was there?
Yeah.
Oh,
was
the
it good?
crust.
It's just like
was
nice,
so
thin
good.
and flaky.
Okay.
Not even just thin and
okay.
flaky, but it was like crackery and graham crackering. It had this deep
Yeah.
molasses flavor, and
Ooh,
it snapped almost,
okay.
but it melted in your mouth, and it still had that crystallization.
This place had no business being as good as it was. It was so good. I cannot wait to go back.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely want to try coconut cream pie.
Actively ridiculously good. So from there we could have gone straight across. There's this, Nova Scotia's this big, here's Yukon.
Yeah,
It's
they got
our
a
new
new
dog.
Yeah.
Hey, good girl. So Nova Scotia's this big peninsula, and it's right at the New Brunswick, Nova Scotia border is kind of the thinnest part. And we could have gone straight across that, but there's this area that I think kind of looks like Sinai, the Sinai Peninsula.
Okay.
Right there, you got to look at a map on the Bay of Fundy to know what I'm talking about. But at the end of it is this place called Cape Chignecto Provincial Park. It was gorgeous, and that was the perfect place to see the tides, because this is all the way inside the Bay of Fundy.
Okay,
So
yeah.
we were here at low tide and just got to walk vast distances out on the floor of the ocean.
Okay.
Got a sample of sand from way out there, and we were
Okay.
climbing on rocks,
Boulders.
looking huge. Bigger than the structure we're sitting under.
Whoa.
Climbing up there and seeing seawater pools way far up.
Oh, that's cool.
That was really cool. It's like
Yeah.
tide pools,
Yeah.
but you usually look
You
down
have to
at
climb
tide
to
pools,
get
like
not
20
yeah.
feet high.
That's
Yeah.
really cool. Did you see any creatures? Any?
We looked, we
think so.
didn't,
No,
but we only
no.
explored a few. But there were also more places to explore here.
Oh, you could hike for days in this
There's
area.
fossil national parks or something.
Yeah. We
yeah,
barely skimmed the
didn't have
surface
time
of this area.
this
truly,
time.
yeah.
Cool. Did you stay long enough to see the tides rise at all? or-
No, but yeah, you want to be far away when that happens. 'Cause it can be a foot a minute or something, just absolutely bonkers.
Oh man.
And it just comes right in. So yeah, we end the day at a town called St. John, not St. John's, which is the capital of Newfoundland, but St. John, New Brunswick, which is a really cool kind of like old British colonial town, because this is where a lot of the loyalists ended up after the American Revolution. Because there was a full like third of the colonial population that still wanted to be colonials at that point.
Sure.
And like we don't really talk about that in our country as much, but like they wanted to get out of there. So this is like the first major town outside of Maine, so this is where people escaped to. They were like literal refugees from the American Revolution that ended up settling this town. So everything is like King this, Prince that street, and everything is very interesting. Yeah, a monument to the American loyalists, just not a perspective. Yeah, the un-American loyalists.
The un-American loyalists.
It's a good band name.
Yeah, it is. I like that.
It's just such an interesting perspective that we don't talk about that here, of course. Like, why, it's like, no, George Washington came and everyone loved it. That's what we're taught. But, not everyone. So they made their way over to New Brunswick.
That's actually kind of cool, just to be like, these are the people that didn't follow or didn't, adapt, or, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like there's always like two sides in a battle, and some are not going to adapt. They're not going to conform.
Yeah.
They're gonna try to find other things. So, real quick, when you were driving and passing through, did you pass any tolls, bridges, anything that people need to be aware of?
Not around here, but this was near Cape Chignecto. Going out of that was where we saw our last bear of the trip.
Nice.
Which is like you'd expect that in like the West, in like British Columbia, Yukon, Alaska. But you don't think like the Atlantic Northeast and think bears. At least in the modern day as much. But there sure was just chilling in the road. He was plenty surprised to see us.
I'm ignorant. If there's trees, I'll think there's bears.
That's smart. Don't mess around. Yeah.
Bears used to be so much more widespread.
Sure, here in California too. We got the bear on the flag.
Yeah, really recently. And wolves too. Especially comparing maps as to where these animals their ranges used to be compared to where they are now. It's crazy to see how Americans really just wiped them out within the last like 100 to 150 years.
Sure.
And also touching back to the loyalists, history often gets really oversimplified, even in just the idea that there's one or two sides. But when you go traveling, you learn more about the intricate histories of things and the different perspectives, and it just makes life so much more interesting.
Oh yeah. Because I went to Boston and like Massachusetts a lot as a kid, so I knew my like revolutionary history, but not this side.
Yeah.
Not this side.
They don't talk about that in Boston.
Not
that's
the
for darn
hush
sure.
side.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so day 46, July 24th. This is when we finally make our way back after many weeks back to the U.S. We wake up. Just drive the last like hour or two of New Brunswick, get over the border into Maine, super easy, no stress, thank goodness. It was our last border.
They didn't check you. They
crossing
didn't do
of the trip.
anything
No, all good. They checked us on the way. So the year before we did this trip, we were trying to do this trip the other direction, but it was still kind of pandemic-y times, and even though we were vaccinated, Canada was closed and barely starting their vaccination process. So we arrived at this very same border crossing the other way.
Yeah.
And that's where we were denied and our trip was derailed.
Interesting.
So it was such a feeling of accomplishment coming from the other side, having experienced all these thousands and thousands of miles.
Took the back door, the hardcore
And then it's just
door.
like, oh, we made it back to where we were going to go. We've basically done the whole trip now. Now we just need to retrace the rest of it. That felt really cool.
I went to Iceland and we went one direction and then we actually went the other direction. So
nice.
It was just kind of funny.
Nice.
But yeah. Now we met after this trip, but I do have an important question. As you cross the border, did you bring me back syrup?
That's the one thing we missed.
We forgot, because we saw a bunch over in like Yukon territory.
You're supposed to know they met me. They're gonna meet me soon anyway.
We got our Screech. We got our Newfoundland liquor. We got plenty of that.
That's right.
But no, we wanted to get some of the good syrup, but it just didn't quite happen. Unfortunately, I feel bad about it, but.
Cool. So
what
you
can I do
crossed
now?
over.
Crossed
and-
over, got back to Maine. Usually people think of Maine as like, this beautiful, quiet thing, but especially after being in all this like really rural Canada, I was like, whoa, this is busy.
Felt like
This is crowded.
Disneyland.
Yeah, especially getting into Bar Harbor, which is the Disneyland of Maine. Now, I must admit, and this will not be a popular opinion, I don't get Maine. Very
Devin,
much.
if you're watching, don't listen to him.
I'm sorry.
Here's the thing, especially with Bar Harbor, we were talking to some of the locals, and what happened was the Carnegies and a bunch of other really wealthy families, their summer homes burnt down, and so instead of paying to rebuild, because the insurance companies were like no, they donated it as a national park in order to get a tax
And that's how we
write-off.
got Acadia National Park. It's not like all these western ones where it's like, oh my god, look at that canyon. Look at these cool rock arches.
Must preserve it.
It's
a tax write-off
it was
for
a tax
really wealthy
write-off,
people.
and it's
Got
just
it.
and it's so trod upon. It's so not natural. And we got our lobster roll, and it tasted like socks. I'm sorry. I just
Darn you, America.
I don't get it. I don't get it. It's beautiful, but I mean,
The Cadillac
being on the
rocks were
West
awesome.
Coast and having Washington and Oregon and these dramatic landscapes, it's like sure, this is more
Even Nova
nature.
Scotia
This is more
and-
nature than like New Jersey.
Yeah.
But if you're not
Or-
already right in that kind of northeast megalopolis, like there's cooler places to visit.
Even across the border in like New Brunswick and
Yeah,
Nova Scotia.
beauty.
Um,
Untouched beauty
Yeah.
versus very, very trampled on beauty.
So, okay, you're kind of doing it right now, but paint that picture as you're crossing Canada to the U.S.
Mhm.
Like, you're saying that you're seeing, like, just more...
A lot more density.
Okay.
I mean, it's still like reasonably rural. It's rural
Yeah.
Maine, but it's totally a different world, a totally different vibe.
But you can kind of... do you kind of immediately see that as you cross
Very.
over?
Yeah, totally, like,
Ah.
jarringly immediately. You see more political signs, too, which was just not what we
Right.
were looking forward
It's like you
to
just wanna
in
travel.
America
Yeah.
again. But,
Okay.
yeah,
Bummer.
we explored Acadia National Park. There was many beautiful parts, but I thought it was overhyped. I might be
Bummer.
hunted down
No.
by saying this. A lot of people love Acadia with their whole hearts.
We'll
I
find
didn't
out.
get it.
to be fair, what was it? Cadillac
Cadillac Mountain?
Cadillac Mountain was
That
pretty
was cool.
You have this beautiful pink rock. You can
It's like the
amazing
highest point
views
on all the eastern seaboard. And
of,
you can
of the U.S.
But here's the thing. You can drive to the top of this mountain.
Which I don't feel like it takes away anything. He disagrees.
A little bit.
But I thought it was really
It was
cool.
sure convenient, but you can't drive to the bottom of the Grand Canyon.
Another,
Okay, I've never done this before. In the comments section, write if... What was the area?
Acadia National
yeah.
Park in Bar
Right,
Harbor.
if it's, if you agree or disagree with this guy.
Sure.
I've never done a whole, like, in the comments,
Yeah.
create a discussion.
Some controversy
Yeah.
right here.
I will say though, there's something I noticed is folks who go to Acadia, because you basically have free roam of the entire park. It's just kind of like, you go to any park around here in your neighborhood, you can walk anywhere. A lot of
It's a
people who
park.
are,
It's a national park, not a national park.
Yeah, and a lot of people who go to Acadia and then go to places, like where were we just recently with the Three Gossips.
Oh, like Arches.
Arches. You go to like Arches or something.
Yellowstone.
Folks who are used to going to Acadia and then go to places like Arches where it's a national park, they ask you not to go off the paths, and they will because they're used to having free roam, and so they're trampling, really delicate like ecosystems. Even it's like there's mosses on the ground. There's certain things growing, and they'll just trample even if there's signs because they're used to just having free roam. And so it kind of creates this mentality of nature's something for me to use and enjoy,
consume yeah.
versus to protect and to treat with respect.
See, it was just not a national park attitude that I was used to as a West Coaster. That's a more neutral way
Yeah.
of saying it, other than I don't get Maine.
Okay.
Anyway,
So, but real quick, this is kind of like East Coast U.S. people
Mm-hmm.
not really kind of understanding that nature,
I mean, it is what it is.
and-
It's
It's a lovely
it's
park.
not like it's a bit of nature that necessarily needs to be preserved, because it never really was. It was Rockefeller's, I believe.
Rockefellers, that's it.
Vacation area that had a big fire. There was even a whole town a whole fishing town in Acadia that they got everyone to leave to turn it into a national park.
And they didn't leave
So that's
willingly.
different. That's very different.
They cut them off from their ability to fish, so that they were literally like, we can't live here because we can't
That's
make
not
our
a
living.
national park to me.
No.
There's so much blood on their hands. There.
Right. Yeah, it's a tax write-off. Not a national
Do you know
park.
how they block the fishing source?
Yeah, because basically it was in this little inlet, and they bought the areas surrounding the fishing town, so they got the rights to the waters there. And
Didn't they like build a road that cut off through the inlet too?
so they couldn't actually cross.
It's all very pretty, but you read about it and it's kind of sad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I think that Maine is pretty because, especially for the East Coast U.S., there's not really those same protected areas.
It's all built up around the whole East Coast. So it's like, if you're living there, I get it. It's like, yeah, Maine is the closest to nature that you're really going to find without crossing a border
But
or
the
going
moment you
all the way to
cross
the
the
West
border-
Coast. It's nicer.
It's nicer
Yeah.
because it's actually preserved, not because they've set aside anything. It's just nature is allowed to just kind of exist.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
a little bit
I
more.
like that. I like that a lot. Anyway, I'm done with
Yeah.
my spicy opinions. This is Monday, July 25th, day 47. We wake up in just outside Bar Harbor, work our way down to Portland, Maine, which is there's a lovely town. I'm not sure what you do there, but we had a very good lunch at this restaurant called Duck Fat. We got duck fat poutine, stupid good, and an amazing sandwich of some sort. So that's excellent cuisine.
Okay.
They would have duck fat donuts that we were too full to eat, unfortunately.
So good food. I
But
just
did
I
you
don't
get
get
one
what
for
you
later at least?
No,
or-
no. I mean, we had so much to eat on this trip. We were not needing to take every last opportunity.
Cool.
We also stopped at this really cool farm. I wish I remembered the name. I don't. That does these really cool flavored milks. We got a chocolate milk, of course. We also got a blueberry milk that was ridiculously good. It's like the best, like fresh milk,
Yeah.
kind of fresh from the farm flavor with that Maine blueberry. So you can get good eats in Maine. You know, like I don't like lobster, I guess, but
Oh, I love
you can get. It tastes like socks to me. Sorry. Anyway, you can get a lot of other good eats in Maine. It's lovely.
I love eating socks, so this is no problem.
Specifically, wet socks.
Yeah, I don't need that
You
in
want
my
to keep
life.
going with that? Moldy wet.
Great. All right, so we leave Maine,
Yeah.
go through the short bit of New Hampshire into Massachusetts, passed by Boston. We explored Boston a good amount on the road trip the year before, so we went past Boston. We went up Cape Cod, which was I love Cape Cod. I may not understand Maine, but I definitely get Cape Cod. I think that's one of the coolest, most beautiful areas, especially on the whole East Coast. Certainly.
All new terrain for me. I would definitely go
Oh,
to
it's
any of these
gorgeous
things.
out there.
All bluffs, these sand dunes and bluffs from the ocean, you know, hitting this inlet. And especially when you go to the end, you just look out and it's just ocean. It's just open ocean.
And just sand for miles. Like
Yeah.
it you know, it would move in like storms and stuff. It's all made of sand out there. It's so cool.
When we got to the end, we were standing out looking at the sunset, and all of a sudden,
Gorgeous.
we started seeing these seals, and they started coming closer and closer to shore, and they were hugging the shore, and we were like, all right, we're
Dense too.
really close to people, which they normally
Have you
don't
ever
do.
seen Jaws? Takes place in Massachusetts, so
thought it
we
was-
didn't get in that water.
The original Jaws actually took place.
The
I think,
story
is-
behind it was somewhere else.
Yeah, I think a little bit more inland in New Jersey because bull
Not
sharks, a little bit.
Oh,
Because
yeah?
bull sharks, it wasn't a great white originally in the actual events. It was a bull shark because bull sharks can actually go into fresh water because they can filter. I forget exactly what part of their body,
Yeah.
but they can go more inland. And
Yeah.
it was a bull shark initially that was attacking people.
But in the movie, it's Massachusetts. So we
Yeah.
didn't mess around with getting in the water, but it is just gorgeous out there. We had a lovely East Coast Italian dinner.
Very lovely.
Walked around with just the beautiful ocean breeze coming in. That was truly fantastic. I love that
Not our
place.
last time there.
Oh yeah, certainly. Oh, and at this point, you know, I keep track of like cosmic mile markers and stuff. So at this point, we have driven further than the radius of Neptune, which is 15,299 miles.
Okay, very cool.
Well, that's kind of cool,
Yeah.
I think.
Very cool. Now, mind you, for all those that aren't familiar with the U.S., the East Coast is like very dense with their states.
Oh, yeah.
So you're able to pass through like 5 states
In a
just,
day,
like, yeah,
easy.
so-
Yeah, which we do the next day too, day 48. It's a short drive. It was like less than 6 hours, but we drove our way off of Cape Cod, out of Massachusetts, straight across Rhode Island. I'd been like Providence before, but I hadn't been to the more like ocean-facing side of the state.
That's really
So that was gorgeous. Oh, that was so much fun to drive through. I love Rhode Island too. So I don't hate the whole Northeast. It's just, there's some great places. Love Rhode Island.
Now, be honest, like, is there, since you kind of done this, like, as a American, were you like, we could speed through this a little bit more, or did you still want to take your time? I mean, this is just opinion.
I thought we
but-
could speed through it a little bit more, but mostly because we had been to this area trying to do this trip the year
Yeah,
before.
okay.
So we had already covered a lot of this ground.
Yeah.
So we were kind of getting the parts that we hadn't
Okay,
before.
okay,
But there's still some parts we just sped through. Like, I also don't really get Connecticut. It's just kind of very country clubby. So it's just, I just went right through Connecticut to get to New York.
And if anyone watching this disagrees, please let us know why, so that we
And
can
cool
change
places
our
to go. I
opinions.
will go. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not narrow-minded with this. I just haven't seen anything much in Connecticut that's been like, oh, that's a super cool place worth stopping at. But there's good pizza there. I got to try that at some point. But there's also good pizza in New York, which is where we ended this night.
Oh, if you want to talk about controversy, I had it I only had it in one spot. I didn't go around getting a bunch of New York pizza, but I was like, what the fudge? You know what I mean? I was just like, this, I don't know. Anyway, the pizza, I need somebody in the comments, please recommend all your favorite pizza places in New York so that I could be corrected.
Can I start?
Yeah.
There's this place called Artichoke Basile's Pizza,
Okay.
and they have this amazing, it's like huge like slices, so it's like one or like two slices is like a crazy
Pizza.
feast, one is plenty enough.
Okay.
And they have this like amazing like thick artichoke heart pizza that is out of this
love
world,
artichoke heart,
and it's like
yeah.
you're just like drinking cream eating this pizza slice. It's
You mean like
way
the
too
cheese
good.
is just so like
It's like so
delicious.
creamy
Yeah,
and thick. It
okay.
is so
'Cause that's what they're
good.
known for. the
And we had
gooey
one
cheese.
called the Staten Island that was killer.
What was on that one? I don't
It was like
remember.
red onions. It was almost like
yeah,
a
the red onions.
barbecue-y one, but it wasn't. It was,
Hi,
it was
Yukon.
good. Sorry, she was trying to play with the bee back there.
Oh, it's very
great.
smart. Yeah, you don't want to learn that lesson.
Can't wait for you to meet a skunk. That's about to happen. They always love to say hi there.
She's
And I'm a big
friendly.
Broadway guy, so when I'm in New York, I try to see as many shows as possible. So
Yeah.
we went to go see the most recent Tony winner, A Strange Loop, which is
Okay.
about to close in a couple months, which is a real shame. It was a fantastic show.
Oh,
A really
they might
cool, new and unique,
bring it back.
new and unique
Okay.
thing. I wish the best for this show. I hope it gets a tour and all sorts of other stuff. That was really cool to see. It's good to be back in Broadway after driving through a lot of rural roads and all that. Back in the middle of Manhattan and everything. I mean, we stayed right there, right off of Times Square. It was a big culture shock.
Perfect.
But yeah, the next day, day 49, it was a rest day, but you don't rest much when you're in New York. We were just constantly doing stuff. We saw two shows. We saw Come From Away, which is the show about 9/11 in Newfoundland, when all the 7,000 people landed in a town of 9,000 and were warmly greeted and taken care of for days. And that was so special to see after actually being in all the places mentioned
And meeting.
in the show and literally meeting some of the people who are portrayed in that. That was so cool to actually see that show.
I'm a little confused though. We went from the Boston area, so then you went to New York after that?
Yeah. Driving through Rhode Island and Connecticut to get there.
Okay. Interesting.
That was day 48. Day 49 was just chilling around New York. I mean, again, like you said, you can just fly through states in the
Yeah.
Northeast. So that's what
Okay.
we did.
A lot of
It was
bouncing
like,
around.
less than 6 hours to get from the very tip of Cape Cod all the way into the heart of New York City.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But yeah, this day 49, we didn't drive, but we did a ton of stuff. Oh, we got Katz's Deli for her first time. That's damn good.
Compared to Schwartz's, though, you know, this
In
is
Montreal.
my you know, controversial take. Though I think if you have
She's
Schwartz's,
right. She's right. But
it won't
Katz's
be.
is also
It's iconic.
no reason to diss Katz's.
Yeah,
but
it's not
Schwartz's is
bad. It's
special.
good, but
Yeah.
Schwartz's, like with Katz's, you know, it's delicious and you get
Yeah.
a shit ton of food.
Yeah.
You know, it is like piled. I don't understand how they can even think you're
the
going to
good
eat
stuff.
them. It's great.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah.
Have you been to
but-
Katz's in New York?
No.
Oh man, it's world class. They're like the best pastrami.
Okay.
If we've
I
done the
do
other
like
way
your
around.
pastrami.
Well,
Is it
this
one of
is-
those like gigantic?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
About
Yeah,
that
yeah.
big,
Little
actually.
piece of
Yeah.
bread and just a mile of meat in between.
Really good.
Little shout out, there's on Sepulveda, if you just type in like New York deli sandwich, there's a New Yorker there.
Oh, I gotta
Yeah.
try that
that.
still. Yeah,
And they
that
make
looks
it-
good.
They make it, they're pretty good. Yeah.
Nice. Nothing is like Katz's though. It's
Sure.
a special
And,
place.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
much
we
fun.
got we saw another show that evening. We saw Beetlejuice the musical, which was quite fun.
I love it. They'll make everything into a so how was the
Yeah.
Beetlejuice one?
Honestly, I had a great time.
Yeah.
I didn't know what to expect going in. I was wondering whether it was just going to be like one of those kind of cheesier kind of movie musical kind of
Yeah.
things, but it was a great time. I,
I mean,
would definitely see
the
it.
wardrobe and props must have been great.
Amazing. They had like
Great
these
effects.
giant puppets. They were
Yeah.
still going with that whole like Tim Burton aesthetic.
Sure,
It was pretty great.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And they changed the story a little bit, so
So it
you're
was
not,
fresh. Yeah, it wasn't just like, oh, I'm watching the movie again.
Oh,
but
okay,
with
that's
people.
good.
Yeah,
I
it
was
was,
gonna ask that. Yeah.
it was still like, similar. It
Sure.
was like a parallel track, you know?
Okay.
Um,
Maybe it's Beetlejuice Goes to Hawaii. That
Yeah.
that
That'd
movie
be
they were
fun.
supposed to make.
Oh, great. No, that was a lot of fun. It was interesting. It was like increasing amounts of commercial between like Strange Loop, which is just like so, real and new, to Come From Away, which is like this beautiful story, but still kind of commercialized, to like Beetlejuice is just totally commercial.
Okay.
I loved all of them though. I had a great time the whole time.
Well, let's end it. Are you
And
leaving
they're right
New York
around
here?
Yeah,
Yeah,
heading
so
out of New York. We can.
Day 50 right now.
That's a
and
good
we'll
good spot to. And I think there should just be one more after this point, getting us
probably, yeah. It
home
looks
from
like
there.
we're toward the end there.
Yeah.
Perfect. So yeah, thank you, Adam
Perfect.
and Izzy. Do you want to quickly just say your handles or anything like that? Everything will be in the subscription also. So if you could search
Yeah,
them there.
if you want a more specific day by day and seeing pictures, you can just follow me on Instagram, Aloha Shirt Dad with underscores between the words, and yeah, you can see a lot about my adventures. Ask me any questions or anything.
And he'll also help you plan your trips
Yeah,
if you want advice.
I will live vicariously through your trips.
That's awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, take care, everybody.
Hey everybody, guess what? I wrote an illustrated children's book. I am super excited for this. It's a great book, so please support, please buy, please do whatever you feel like doing. The Giraffe and the Lion. Find it anywhere. Thanks everybody.